Now to sticker shock at the grocery store. According to new data that first appeared in the Wall Street Journal and obtained by ABC News, prices for hundreds of food items have jumped more than 50% since 2019. Rebecca, you have more, including how you can turn back time on your grocery bill, which is very important. So let's take a look at what $100 got you in 2019 and what it gets you now.
And the visual is what really creates the contrast. So this is 2019, Michael. This is what you got in 2019 for $100. Come over here. This is the current day, what you get. And you see, there's an entire section over here that's missing because you're getting about 30% less these days for your money. So back then, you could have done the frozen food, some meat, some hot dogs, some steaks, some strawberries. You see, that's missing from over here because $100 then will now cost you about $130. So you wanted to buy all of that then. Today, it would cost you $130. If your budget is $100, then you're sticking to $100. You're getting less.
All right, but you have some tips. We're going to turn back a little bit, as much as we can. We're going to turn back time on your food bill. And you can say you can do that by starting with apps.
Yes. So apps are really, really helpful, Michael, in putting the whole thing together. They're also helpful in making sure you stick to that budget. So cashback apps like Ibotta will help you save. All the stores now have apps. And what we found is this particular can of mayonnaise, we could save $3 if we shopped at Walmart using the Ibotta app. That's one item, but once you make that for all the items in your shopping cart, you're going to really add up.
And how about buying in bulk? How do you make that work for you?
Okay, so one of the things about buying in bulk is it can work as long as you're not overbuying. Because if you end up buying too much in bulk, you actually end up spending more. So you want to think about how much you're going to burn through, really play it out over the week, and then make sure that you shop at the right places. If you're trying to shop at some of the discount stores, it's important to remember these warehouse clubs, if you buy it for delivery, sometimes you don't have to pay their fee, their membership fee. So always check into that and you can save yourself some money.
I may ask you to help me shop now.
Oh, yeah. I'm happy to do it.
Loyalty clubs, you always ask. I always get asked, do you want to sign up? And I usually say no because I just say no.
You don't want the nuisance of it, right? But here's the deal. They're free. You give them your phone number, your email address. I like to have an email address that's only for loyalty clubs. That way I'm not getting a bunch of spam in my inbox. You sign up for that, and then you save on everything. And we figured out there were some things to save here. And you can also, by the way, do the social media thing. You follow a brand on social media. Oftentimes, they'll have things on sale. When they go on sale, you find out about it, and you save yourself some money.
You can save some money on a lot of different stuff. Laundry detergent, food, everything else.
Everything.
I'm a little surprised by how much you don't get now that you got just, 4 or 5 years ago.
It is really such a contrast, and that's how people are feeling it. Inflation has come down. That means the prices aren't going up as fast, but it is a big difference from a few years back.
It's everywhere. You can't escape it. High food prices are a reality, but are companies profiting?
They've passed on the higher costs that they themselves are paying, and then some.
MPs have tried to get an answer.
How much profit is too much profit? You're making more money than you've ever made.
Now it's our turn.
What's the worst case scenario? Complete removal from store shelves.
We've teamed up with APTN Investigates to find out what's going on with food prices. We go to a place where high prices are a fact of life.
I call it the Wild Wild West because anything goes pretty much.
And government efforts to lower prices may actually be adding to a company's bottom line.
It appears that the retailer may be keeping the extra money.
I'm Stephen D'Souza. This is the Fifth Estate.
We're hoping for a productive meeting. Thank you.
The CEOs of Canada's big grocers are in the hot seat.
How much profit is too much profit? You're making more money than you've ever made. How much profit is too much profit?
We're a big company, and the numbers are very large.
As an angry public and angry politicians look for answers about high food prices.
The idea that grocers are causing food inflation is not only false, it's impossible.
We at Empire are not profiting from inflation. It doesn't matter how many times you say it, write it, or tweet it. It is simply not true.
But for every question, the CEOs had an answer.
Our revenues have gone up, expenses have gone up, margins have not gone up. They've been stable for a long time, and food margins have actually declined. So those are facts.
The message from the big grocers was clear. They're coping with record inflation just like everyone else.
Everyone in there wants the same thing, which is for Canadians to have better food pricing and for that to cool down, and it will.
But is that the reality?
They went up there to Ottawa and tried to pretend like they're victims of inflation like the rest of us are. That's a laughable claim to make. In terms of it being a serious investigation of how this industry works, the parliamentary committee did not succeed.
Economist Jim Stanford has studied how food prices have gone up and what it means for grocers' bottom line.
The supermarkets have contributed to this inflation, absolutely. They have done more than just pass on the higher costs that they have paid for their own inputs. They've done more than that, and their profits in aggregate in Canada have more than doubled since before the pandemic.
Pre-pandemic, the entire retail food sector in Canada made about $2.4 billion in net income. Last year, that number more than doubled to over $6 billion, a record for the industry. And while inflation reached a 40-year high after the pandemic, food inflation was even higher.
For those who say grocers are profiteering, the math just doesn't add up.
Jim Stanford has some math of his own. He says his research shows that grocery profits are going up, even though Canadians are buying fewer groceries than they did before the pandemic.
And that's all the more astounding because our population has grown a lot since then. There are 2.5 million more mouths to feed in Canada today than when the pandemic hit, yet we're buying less groceries, precisely because so many Canadians can't afford it.
If the big grocers say they're not profiting from inflation, then who is? It became clear we needed to go beyond the numbers and start at the beginning of the supply chain.
It's in my blood. I love this way of life. I love working with my family.
4 generations of Leslie Kelly's family have worked this land. Every year, they must decide what will grow best to feed the family and the business. This season, they're growing wheat, canola, and lentils.
I love creating food from a little seed that is grown at our farm but shipped across the world.
That loaf of bread you buy at the grocery store, the one where the price has gone up 20%, it's made with wheat from farms like this. But Kelly says very little of what you pay makes it back to her family.
What percentage of what we pay for a loaf of bread actually goes to you, or is your share of that?
Based on a loaf of bread, whether it's whole wheat or white, it could be 8 to 15 cents that a farmer like me would get out of that loaf of bread.
What do you think about that number?
Well, when some types of bread are selling in grocery stores for $6, it can hurt.
Farmers like Kelly are what's called price takers. The processors they sell to get to determine the price, and for decades, it's barely moved. Since 1975, the price of a bushel of wheat has stayed relatively the same. But the price of the loaves of bread made with that bushel of wheat has risen steadily. According to the National Farmers Union, the gap between the two continues to grow.
If you see something, say something.